No, now we're actually starting.
Okay, starting now.
We're starting it now.
Starting now.
Okay, we are going.
We're gonna start now.
Now. All right,
now.
we have begun.
Glad that we're starting now.
We are beginning the episode. All right, wait. Hit the ding. There we go. All right, and we are. Wait, hold on. Now we are rolling just now.
Perfect, because I'm ready to go now.
All right, I gotta get a glass of water.
Jeffrey Epstein.
Sorry, that's the last time we'll ever do anything like that. We couldn't think of something to say, and so
that was
we just
so bad.
That was not. I don't know if I.
I don't feel good about that.
I don't love that.
Michael Che wrote us that bit.
Don't know who that is. Know a lot of people dislike him.
I don't really know who he is either.
How come there isn't a Saturday White Live?
We can't use this.
We can use that. We can use it. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? It's just a play on the famous American saying, why isn't there a White History Month? Why can't I say? I understand that recently in a lot of intros, I have been saying stuff like that. That is due to mental illness, not because of any held beliefs I have.
think I'm going to cut you off, but I'm not going to cut you off. I want you to keep going.
How come they don't let white guys keep going?
Let's just stop. Hello, everyone. What are we doing? Oh, hello. Welcome. It's TrueAnon.
What's your name?
Oh, good question. My name is Liz.
I am White Liz, and we are joined by Young Chomsky, our producer. I'm just kidding. I'm Bryce Belden, and I'm not telling you what I am. The podcast is TrueAnon. Yes, we did clear that up, Liz. Thank you. Thank you.
Bryce, what are you doing for Thanksgiving?
We're going to White Thanksgiving. I don't know what I'm doing. Thanksgiving is my all-time. I'm not a big holidays guy. Well, that's not true.
What? That's not true. You're lying.
Yeah, okay.
This is about your image.
3/4 of this show is me lying. No, I actually hate Thanksgiving. I've hated Thanksgiving my whole life because one time, well, this is my whole life. This is when I was like 12. I ate turkey on Thanksgiving. This has never happened before or since. But my face literally swelled into twice as large as it ever. It was the whole thing.
Yo, you got turkey face.
I got turkey face. Yeah, it was incredible, and like it didn't hurt.
Many such cases.
It was fucked up. I feel like it preceded. You know how women's lips are like this now? Like it's like they put the thing in them and like they're bigger. Inflatos. I got inflatos, but unfortunately, it was the devil's bargain. The rest of my face was inflated as well. Also, I don't like gravy.
Wait, did that scar you from turkey? Is that what you're saying? But you like Christmas. Loves turkey? You're very jolly.
Who loves That's okay, sweetheart. That's enough of that. Jolly. That's not me.
I'm in the holiday spirit. Which apparently now is illegal, by the way. The government is starting up the war on Christmas again. I can feel it. It's coming back.
These fucking motherfuckers. You know that Gavin Newsom was like spotted at like a party at French Laundry?
Of course. Also, that's so dated. French Laundry? What is it, 2010?
Yeah, we use Chinese laundries now.
Oh my god.
It's like a real fancy restaurant, right, up north?
Yeah, it's like Michelin star, famous, very famous in Napa.
And so if you live in California, he's like, I will kill you if you even wish someone Merry Christmas, but I'm going to go hang out with like the Gettys at French Laundry. And because here's the thing about Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom is addicted to doing cocaine and cheating on his wife. And so those are two great ways to spread COVID is to share in fact, he's in the government, so probably $1,000 bill. And also a little bit of poontang action. That's super spreader.
Who names their wine company Plump Jack?
Pardon me?
That's the name of his wine company before he went into politics. Plump Jack.
Plump Jack.
Yeah. Talk about a jolly sounding name.
I'll tell you what, that
does
sounds
not
like
sound like that's not very winery-esque. It sounds like
that's a
that's not
little more
right.
Folsom Street rather than Napa Valley, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Or like a snowman. A snowman's wine.
Also kind of
Snowman's
Folsom
wine.
Street.
The snowman's wine.
Well, sweetheart, why are we gathered here today?
Well, no, I brought that up because that was going to be my transition into what we were talking about.
Okay, well, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
That's okay. I don't know if it was a
rude.
good transition, but I'm going to keep going with it, which is that it's all in the news now that no one's supposed to even think about spending Thanksgiving with anyone they love. In fact, not only are you not even supposed to think about it, it's actually discussed. The idea of Thanksgiving is bad.
I
That's
agree.
what I've seen.
It's the worst holiday.
No. I don't even think that's like what any of it is about, actually, is about like what Thanksgiving is. But there seems to be like a lot of people piling on. I understand why. And like, I'm not going anywhere for Thanksgiving. I don't even know if I'm going anywhere for Christmas. It's like up in the air. But it's like, yeah, no, I totally get why, they're discouraging or trying to, I would rather say, you'd want to encourage people to stay home or in small groups so as to not create festive super spreader events. But that's not what I'm seeing at all for people. What I'm seeing is like crazy shaming for even like the idea of thinking about wanting to see like your grandma and like share a meal.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Well, one thing I saw was and this was on the internet, was a woman saying that this will be the greatest instance and the best recorded instance of genocide in human history. And
yeah, I need a fact check on that.
All I have to say to that, well, here's the thing: if Democrats really cared about that, they should bomb the rail lines going into your grandma's village.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean,
have you ever
noticed? No, have you ever noticed that? Have you ever noticed that it's all grandparents that control the narrative around the 2022 Thanksgiving Super Holocaust?
You
noticed that?
Yeah, this is terrible.
Grandparent media telling you what to believe. There's no way that many grandparents could have died in 2020.
All right, this is bad. This is. This is not good. Let's actually, okay, so my transition didn't work, but we are actually talking about, I'm really excited about what we're talking about today because for the first time in a long time, surprisingly, I get to put my shiny, fabulous little tinfoil hat on, and somehow, magically, Brace, you also have one on.
Yes. Well, no, this is like, actually it's silver, but I've been doing a colloidal kind of cleanse lately. Young Chomsky got me turned on to it. You know how he's like silver and he's been like, we just thought that was like a steroid thing, but it turns out, well, he's also got me on steroids, but I'm doing this colloidal cleanse and I feel fantastic.
No, but we both got, it's awesome because I've been wanting to do an episode about this for a long time. And I was bugging Brace about it last week. And through your researching of this topic, you found I would say a tinfoil cowboy hat that fits your fine little head just perfect.
That's right, and a pair of 6 guns pointed right at Bill Gates.
So we are talking about what some of you may have heard of, although I'm gonna think that most people listening to this haven't explicitly heard, but it's called
the Great Reset.
Oh, sounds wonderful.
Yeah. And there's a couple things there. People may have heard of it if they follow conspiracy theories. They may have heard it referred to. Some people that follow Q stuff may have kind of like vaguely heard it in relation to Bill Gates and some other kind of figures that we're going to get into. Or if you are big on the TED Talk circuit, you also may have heard it because it turns out that the Great Reset isn't just a conspiracy theory, but also a very real thing. And we want to...
It's an actual literal theory by a guy who came up with it and like wrote a book about it.
Yeah, we got to talk about it because it's happening, guys.
By a German, by the way. I just want to be clear here that... still don't trust you guys.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, this guy was born, I'm just saying, this guy was born in 1938. Like, it was, World War II hadn't even started yet. And I'm like, I'm not letting this guy set the tone for the future.
No,
Well, I don't know what part of 1938 he was born in. It's okay, but it technically only started with the invasion of France. There was no countries before that.
Wait.
Anyways,
Terrible.
I'm just kidding.
Okay, so the Great Reset. Brace, you mentioned German. Can you break this down for me?
So Klaus Schwab is the guy who kind of came up with this. That's just how they pronounce it. I'm just. That's how he says it. And he is like so many of my fucking enemies. And I want to be clear: if you are listening to this show and you are of Teutonic descent, you're one of the good ones. But there are a lot of bad ones in history, and Klaus, I believe, is no different. He is the founder of the World Economic Forum. You know how every year you see like pictures of decadent, like what do people call them, elites in Davos, but really you see the cool pictures of like the snipers who kind of look like stormtroopers standing on top of like.
Those are fantastic photos.
Amazing photos. I mean, if you look at security at Davos, it's incredible.
Yeah.
But it is the brainchild of this man Klaus Schwab. He wrote a book about it, and he's been sort of well, what would the American or the English word for it be? I believe the English translation of the word would be leader of the World Economic Forum since its inception in the early 70s. And he's kind of got this idea of a great reset, and that's sort of in tune with his other idea of the fourth industrial revolution. And I think that most people's sort of introduction to this would have been a short YouTube video that was, or a video that was posted on several different points of social media by the World Economic Forum itself. It is now taken down from basically everywhere.
I noticed that. Why did that happen? Well, my tinfoil hat has, it's spinning its little spins.
I mean, the thing is people put up videos in the hopes, I assume, that people will watch them. But apparently too many people watched this video and had some questions about some of the core premises.
Yeah, I wish we could play it right now, but actually there's no audio.
No.
It's just like a series of statements, but we should read through it because it's pretty amazing.
So it was entitled 8 Predictions for 2030. And we can sort of trade off on these. So the first prediction for 2030 is one I took a little bit of issue with, especially because of the be happy part. But it says, you'll own nothing and be happy, which was superimposed over a picture of a smiling face of the guy with a 5 o'clock shadow, I think. I'm not watching it. Then it goes on to say, whatever you want, you'll rent. And it'll be delivered by drone. And then there's a picture, or rather a video, of a drone delivering a package.
Yeah, well, clearly they're just interested in abolishing private property.
Yeah, it's actually a form of super communism. But I mean, what this seems to refer to me, or to bring to mind for me, is like the, I guess, extension of the sharing economy that that they talk about so much. These same people boost, which is basically like, it's like a car rental place, like, and whatever, don't own a car, you rent one for the day. But like, they extend that now to washing machines. They extend that to, basically any appliance that you can have in your home. It'll be like a rental version, and that seems to be sort of what they envision here. And there's another essay on the World Economic Forum site where a woman describes the future that she believes is coming in somewhat positive tones, and it's like everything that she has is like, if she wants to make pasta that night, she rents a pasta thing. And like all of these things get delivered. And you actually don't own anything. I don't think that anyone's going to be happy in 2030. That is sort of my prediction.
Well, we'll get into exactly why they would be interested in doing that, but I'll just throw it out as a little teaser, is that it's difficult to create complex financial products based on objects that other people own.
Yes.
Say that.
Well, the thing is, too, is like, okay, I might not own things, but like, for instance, this washing machine rental company that I have, they own it. So like, it's really just telling you won't own something, the company will.
So moving on, it says then the U.S. won't be the world's leading superpower. A handful of countries will dominate. Interesting. Okay. A lot of people predict that as well, although they seem to think that China will take it. If they're saying a handful of countries, it sounds like they're looking towards some sort of multipolar European. I don't know.
Oh, you're saying like a European superstate plus China plus America?
Perhaps in a multipolar world.
I don't know about 2030 for that.
Okay.
It says, you won't die waiting for an organ donor. We won't transplant organs. We'll print new ones instead. Fine, I don't know.
You'll eat much less meat, an occasional treat, not a staple, for the good of our environment and our health. Okay.
I think the key here is that you'll eat much less meat, not the people who are making this video. 1 billion people will be displaced by climate change. In 10 years, wow. We'll have to do a better job at welcoming and integrating refugees, with a shot of refugees like refugees welcome sign there. That's a lot of people, I guess, in 10 years.
Yeah. Polluters will have to pay to emit carbon dioxide. I'd like to know who they're paying. There will be a global price on carbon. This will help make fossil fuels history.
You could be preparing to go to Mars. Scientists will have worked out how to keep you healthy in space. The start of a journey to find alien life? Well, here, that solves all of our climate change problems.
That's perfect for Falk. This is very similar, actually, to fully automated luxury communism because, yeah, we'll be preparing to go to Mars to mine Mars with Elon Musk or whatever.
Very excited for it.
Western values will have been tested to the breaking point. Checks and balances that underpin our democracies must not be forgotten. I think Welbeck wrote that point.
So this seems like obviously meant for a European audience.
Yes.
But I think this video freaked a lot of people out just because of like sort of the commanding way that it describes all the things that are happening. And I think you'll own nothing and be happy is probably the most jarring thing that people are told because it seems like such an oxymoron. Like I think a lot of the unhappiness that a lot of people feel, I mean, is not directly because they don't own things, because most people, you know, I think and most of our listeners' age do not own much in the general sense of things. Certainly they usually don't own property. And this is sort of being like, well, all the way things are going now, it's like it's actually going to get even worse.
So let's get into it on what exactly this is. So you mentioned Klaus Schwab, that this is a big project that he's spearheading. And when we say it's a big project, I mean it's like this is a massive, massive project. This is a real thing. And it's a program that they call the Great Reset. And it's basically a massively funded, ambitious, internationally coordinated project that is being led by some of the biggest multinational corporations and financial players in the world and being kind of carried out and ushered in. And the public is being basically buttered up for it by cooperating state bodies, NGOs, and their affiliated PR and media agencies. And we'll kind of get into that. And like what it is, in my opinion, and we can kind of get into what they say it is versus what we kind of think it is. But it's like kind of a combo of like early 20th century science fiction. There's a big emphasis on transhumanism. As well as space colonization. But transhumanism, we've talked about a bit on the podcast in relation to Epstein and some of his ventures.
Oh, he would have been a great reset guy, 100%.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Huge. He probably was.
Yeah, I guess the timeline does kind of line up.
So imagine like, like transhumanism, like fascination with like early 20th century science fiction with the obsessiveness of like a desperate accountant in the throes of a gambling addiction.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like when Liz says is like that basically, you know, the largest corporations and sort of international bodies are all in on this, like that is true. I mean, if you I have listened to almost every episode of the World Economic Forum's Great Reset podcast, including the hour-long episodes they have instead of the usual 17 to 20-minute ones. And I mean, I heard everyone from Prince Charles to the leaders of the UN and the IMF, Mark Benioff, and even, I believe, Grover. In fact, Let's get him on now.
Hello, everybody. It is I, your cute and adorable pal Grover, with a message for listeners of the Great Reset. Well, you are in luck because I know a thing or two about resetting. I reset my alarm clock every morning. But you are talking about resetting the entire world. Now that is a very big job. Well, my friend Miss Sherry Weston and I are here to help. On Sesame Street, we know that it is very important for children to learn and play every day. And because playtime is so important, we have been thinking of ways to help children all over the world learn and play at home. At first, it was hard when nobody could go to school, and I could not visit my friends like Elmo or, well, even Oscar the Grouch. Then we learned to have video playtime, which was a lot of fun and made us feel better. Now, I know you will want to hear all about it, and so I will now let Miss Sherry be the one to tell you. Okay, bye-bye, everybody.
So when you dropped that, I thought it was going to be Grover Norquist, but of course he wouldn't be in on this.
No, he actually defected to the People's Republic of China, who, by the way, are also in on this. So
So basically, on the surface, they call it, like you said, the fourth industrial revolution, and they kind of use automation and AI and 5G, all things that we've spent a lot of time talking about, as the kind of like new the new revolution that is going to completely change the world. I would say that, at least, this is my reading, is that underneath all of that is the fact that actually capital profits have been falling for a very long time. And in fact, like, the entire world, including the United States, was about to go into recession prior to COVID, which...
We talked about this. We had Alexandra Skaggs on, and we had a whole episode about this. And then, bam, like, COVID hit.
February, January.
Yes.
I should go back and listen to that. Yeah, but so that this, growth is stagnant and profits are falling, and the kind of, I'd say, Western-led infinite expansion model of capitalism is not returning the profits that the people at the top need it to.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically, kind of what's underneath this idea is like kind of the construction of an absolute, like a new bubble, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's that, and it's also like they can, not only can these people see the which way the wind is blowing, they're the people who sort of control the which way the wind is blowing. And I think this is like, the way I think of the Great Reset and the way I kind of think of all of this is just like a new ideological push to sort of like bring together all of the disparate, or not even disparate, all of the connected strands that, like, technological, political, social, economic, environmental policies that are sort of like being implemented on purpose and then sort of being implemented because of new technologies as well. All together into kind of one thing, and that thing is the Great Reset. It's another word for the future, I guess. But like, what is, baby, tell me, what is the future looking like?
So what the Great Reset does, and this is an actual plan, but basically what it's attempting to do is fully restructure the world's economy, and I would say also geopolitical relations, based on like two ideas that that they can and will make a this sounds crazy, but this is true. This is the idea, that there is a way to, and a need to, make a basically a total database of every element of nature and every life form that they would put as part of a global inventory.
The Codex.
Yeah. I guess theoretically that's supposed to be managed by kind of benevolent state actors, although
That I'll
question
say that
marks there.
is we never get a clear idea from any of this as to exactly who will be managing all of this. I think Schwab sort of imagines himself as like the great liberal internationalist, where like he brings everyone together in the World Economic Forum and we sort of hash things out there. And it's sort of an alt UN, although the UN itself is of course dick deep in all this stuff. There is a sort of implicit like thread throughout this that all of these things will be managed by groups like the IMF, like the World Economic Forum, like the UN,
World Bank,
and yes, exactly, like the World Bank, and I mean, that sounds most like realistic option to me. I believe that, like, all the incestual nature of all of these products basically lead to all these people being in the same rooms all the time, anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what they imagine is like basically like a shared database of every single thing on Earth that's accounted for. And I mean like every single thing, every piece of nature, every piece of like every human, every single thing is accounted for like obsessively in a database. And that inventory is basically all registered, readable by a scanner, easily ID'd, and managed by AI as a way of, they say cutting costs, increasing profits, improving efficiency in people's lives, interactions, production, our relations to the environment, et cetera, et cetera. But as I kind of mentioned before about the rent to own thing, that was a little spoiler because I mean, if we have anyone listening who out there who likes the stock market or knows anything about complex financial products, creating an entire database that where you like have an entirely new inventory of the entire world's resources, literally the entire world's resources, you could create entirely new asset classes and new speculative financial instruments
Yes.
that to be like infinitely traded and securitized ad infinitum. And like I want to pause there because like this is like what is underlying this entire thing. That like capital profits are down, that the economy is stagnant, that there's there isn't infinite growth, and this is kind of a shortcut to creating more and more new financial products.
Exactly. Like if you make nature into like just a actual like literal asset, like they're trying to do here. I mean, I don't really have the vocabulary for this kind of stuff because all this, as listeners will know, most of this stuff is pretty confusing to me when we start talking about like assets and stocks and all this shit. But like I read a lot of Cory Morningstar's work on Wrong Kind of Green. She just done really good work around this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the way I sort of am beginning to understand it is that it basically like makes nature into like a new kind of like product, like a literal actual product.
Yeah, and not just nature, like humans, which we're going to get into. Like, I mean, it is every single living thing would belong to a database that could then become basically, I mean, you can say asset, you can say, speculative, whatever, but basically bet on in different forms, right? And a way for people to continue extracting fictitious capital, because that's what it is.
Does not sound like the kind of future I want to be living in.
Well, no, I mean, I don't think a lot of people are going to want to. I mean, all that sounds fine, and until you realize like what it entails and what like your role in it is, right? Because in order to do that, the entire project basically hinges on us like completely reworking our understanding of how like we relate with the world, right? The biggest example there would be with privacy. So if there's going to be a huge database of every single living person and every single living thing, one can imagine you might run into some privacy issues there.
Well, we've sort of already run into that in kind of what I view as like a pilot program for this. So I think a pretty good example of the genesis of this kind of stuff. I don't think this is going to be the end result. I think this is sort of going to be looked back on as like a germination of the ideas that they have. Is the Aadhaar project in India, and Aadhaar is Hindi for foundation, but it is a new biometric ID system in India, started by a guy named Nandan Nilekani, and this guy's a real trip, and I don't think we have enough time to really go into him, but he's a former, or if you really want to get weird about it, maybe current Fabian socialist, who was in charge of a company called Infosys. And there's an interview with Jon Stewart out there in like 2008 where he calls him the Bill Gates of India. And brother, you don't know how right you were. So India, if you listen to our episode on the Odyssey, you know that India has like a lot of people who sort of fall under the radar, essentially, who aren't really like, they don't have ID, they aren't really like, I guess, urban members of society there with, an ID card, or let alone a passport or anything like that. And so basically this guy Nandan had this idea that he would take everybody's fingerprints, their iris scans, and as much other biometric data as they could. He would, there's some really wild pictures out there of like tribal people putting these devices on their faces, and that gives you a 12 number, randomized 12 number, basically pin. It doesn't grant citizenship. It's just used for identifying residents. And he started in about 2009. He left Infosys to form this, what was called the Unique Identity Authority of India, which is actually an actual government agency staffed pretty much entirely by Google and Intel engineers. And he runs it like a startup. The New Yorker called it a public scheme, a genial software billionaire who intends to create a national biometric database 10 times larger than the world's largest existing biometric database, which is the US's Department of Homeland Security's VISIT database. The logo is a red fingerprint, and what they do is an NGO makes an appointment for you. You go to some guy with a fingerprint scanner, and they scan you, they take your iris scans, and there you are. You're in, and they send you a number. It's supposed to work like that. It often does not. It can take years to get them. But the this is the thing. The whole idea behind this that it would remind citizens of their rights, entitlements, and duties, and would oblige the states to improve services. It would boost the national economy by allowing hundreds of millions of Indians without bank accounts to open one, and it would cut government losses from corruption. That's again for the New Yorker. Unfortunately, there are basically no laws around privacy in India, so every corporation that wanted to got access to this database.
Oh my God.
Exactly. And so it went from being a thing where like, okay, you got this number and you could open a bank account, and you could essentially, it was so that you to rationalize or like the system of giving out government assistance. But what actually became is every 2-bit motherfucker who sold gasoline or who sold cell phones or who sold SIM cards had access to the Aadhaar database in order to check if you had it. And all these people started losing their government assistance. A like slew of services in 2016 added the tag Aadhaar now mandatory, and now everything from, like I said, getting a SIM card, getting gasoline, crop insurance, vehicle registration, post office deposits, food distribution, Aadhaar became necessary to get any of these things, and it went from a government ID for government services to something that is basically now a tool of the market. Guess who it's backed by?
Oh no, here we go.
Bill Gates and the Gates Foundation. And this is a big bugbear of Bill Gates's. He's really into this biometric thing. In fact, he wants to export the Aadhaar system to other countries as well. And it's not like this is just some like third world kind of thing where they're doing without, they could never do that here. I mean, the US is a giant biometric database too. And we see with the start of real IDs, this is going to happen everywhere, I think. And I think this is just another part, I guess, of this great reset thing, where it's like you are going to be monitored and you are going to be picked over and poured over like never before. And it'll sort of all be under the guise, if this is any example, of social justice.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about the privacy thing is that this has kind of been the attitude from a lot of people since even the Snowden revelations, which
Mhm.
was like, oh well, who cares? You know what I mean? Like I've noticed that a lot, and particularly like right after the Snowden leak the Snowden documents came out about the NSA. And Five Eyes and everything. I think it's Glenn Greenwald at the time who put out a really good argument against the kind of logic of, well, I'm not doing anything wrong, so I don't have anything to worry
Yeah.
about. But I don't have it in front of me. But I remember that. I think he wrote that. But like I think that we have already desensitized ourselves to the ideas of privacy, right?
Uh-huh.
And like even now with COVID, I mean, it's easy to see how events like the pandemic can usher in new ideas into the kind of discourse and the kind of collective imaginary about are medical records or is medical data actually something that should be private? Shouldn't that be
Mhm.
public knowledge? Isn't that good for the public safety, right?
Yeah, for the common good.
Right. And so like you can kind of see this stuff like you said, like kind of slowly, or as it may be quickly, dissipating into the culture. And that is something that I think that people get wrong when they talk about this, because reset is in the name, and so you kind of think that there's going to be like a switch, right?
Mhm.
That there's just going to be like, oh, now it's time and we're going to start on a new path. But it's like, no, because one of the biggest things about this, and I mean, it's right there in fucking Klaus Schwab's books. He's got like a couple. I read one in particular that he wrote after, or like in July, which is called like COVID and the Great Reset. This guy can't stop talking about the Great Reset.
He loves the Great Reset.
That's the only thing he talks about. But like a key part of this project is like it's like everyone changing their relationship with the world and the way that they think of
Mhm.
themselves and what they have a right over, what other people have a right over, and even the like conception of themselves as humans. I think, or as social creatures, even like when we say there's gonna I think I feel like I don't want to fuck up and like not explain this properly, which I think I'm in danger of doing. But like when we say there's going to be a big database that accounts for every single thing, like I think that might not sound like a terrible thing. You know what I mean? Or
Well,
like
I
what's
think
the
some people
problem
could
with
think of it as
that?
like rational. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
well, the Earth has finite resources. I mean, why shouldn't we catalog everything so we can better ration?
But the fact is that it will every single thing and every single element then of the world will be micromanaged and monitored. And like
Mhm.
that is, you cannot divorce that from like the reason why they're cataloging all of this stuff, right? And suddenly every piece of nature, including you and me, and like the little lizard and the big redwood tree and the big
Mhm.
black bear and a koala and a turkey, are all like no longer living creatures that are all part of a living ecosystem and a collective society that we collectively build and relate to with each other, and and each effect on
Well,
our
it's
own.
organic.
Yeah,
It,
it's no
what
longer that. Like now, every single thing is actually simply a piece of data or a host or a form of capital, including
Mhm.
you and me. And like this is taking the concept of human capital so much further than I think even like neoliberals imagined.
I think this is sort of the end of the line. You called it like the terminus, I think, of neoliberalism, and
Mm,
like it really is sort of like it. You can't go further than this. I mean, this, I believe, by the way, will go pretty far. Like, don't get me wrong here. I always, when people ever talk about late capitalism, whatever, like that always seemed a little, say, optimistic to me. But like, I think we did this with the Great Reset. Like, I mean, these guys are right. We are entering I don't know if I would call it the fourth industrial revolution, but we are entering the new dark ages. You know what I mean? Like we are entering a new era, and we're not there yet. Like what Liz is saying is this stuff diffuses slowly, and I totally agree with that. I think like there is sort of this desire to see like, okay, well, December 23rd in 2024, the new world order will take over and everything will be different. But it's like, no, brother, like you will not even notice most of this shit happening. It'll just happen. And it'll happen in this decentralized way, even though it will appear decentralized. And like, you know, all of a sudden your life will totally be different. I mean, look how much COVID has sort of launched so much of that forward. I mean, you told me a year ago that I would be fucking talking to people on Zoom more than, you know, once a week. I'd tell you you're out of your fucking mind. I'd citizens arrest you and throw you in citizens prison. And now it's like, you know, these things are, you know, we adapt quickly and we acclimate quickly to these things. And it's like these companies are more than happy to help us along that path. And so it's like their whole vision of the future is a very fucking bleak one, because not only are you a piece of data, you're also, as they say, an entrepreneur. And what does an entrepreneur do? An entrepreneur doesn't necessarily work a job. An entrepreneur hustles. And if you've seen all this propaganda on, you know, subway stations or in ads that you see on the internet about hustling, because that's what they want you to do. They want you to become basically somebody who not only you don't sell your labor, you rent your labor to a million different companies, and you do whatever they need you to do, and you don't own anything, and nobody else owns anything. Everyone just delivers everything to everybody else, and it creates this large, like, I mean, I don't even know what to call it, but it's sort of, you know, it's a mixture of feudalism and capitalism, much more, I think, blatant than the one we've seen already.
Yeah, it's like a neo-tech feudalism. I mean, it really is crazy. It's cyberpunk future.
Yeah.
It's like the most cyberpunk. I don't know how they got it all right.
Yeah.
But it's true what you say about the entrepreneur stuff. I mean, that's like Wendy Brown kind of writes about that, where she talks about, you know, I think she writes very well about the kind of shift that happened of people conceiving of themselves as human capital and what that's done, where like now we evaluate every one of our life choices on whether or not it will pay dividends or will hurt our future, you know, possible value. Like we don't even, that's how we evaluate things. And we think of, you know, that it's even how social media is run, right? It's like every, you know, every single thing is a marketplace, and we are all little bits of data and nothing else.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
This is taking it to a kind of global, terminal conclusion, it feels like.
Well, they talk a lot too in like Great Reset podcasts about the need for companies to basically get ready to change a lot of different things, to add AI and how 5G will change everything. And something that always sticks with me is because they're pretty blasé. Well, I mean, they act like they're not, but in reality, they're pretty blasé about the fact that these like technological, I guess, quote unquote, advances will put millions, if not eventually billions of people out of work. And there is no alternative for those people. Right? Like if once this ball gets rolling, like once the train leaves this fucking station, like there's no like other good job you can get out there if you're fired from your office job. Because I mean, they're talking about in these Great Reset podcasts, lawyers, doctors, all these things will be automated, and they won't be a need for human beings there, as at least a greatly reduced need for human beings there. Of course, I don't think this will happen immediately. I think a lot of these people have a vested interest in sort of inflating how far along this technology is, but this technology is coming. And it's like, what is everyone supposed to do? And I think that the answer is probably going to be some technocratic solution like UBI and carefully manage, like basically handouts so that people can consume a certain amount of things to keep the economy going. And it really, like, you know, we are sort of heading towards a dismal fucking place with this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like, I mean, nowhere in any of these conversations, like, I guess what I'm saying, you know, when we say that this takes a lot of like basically social engineering and what, you know, okay, I hate saying it, manufacturing of consent, like it does. And when people believe like, oh, AI is just going to happen, and then we're just going to automate some jobs, and oops, that's that's what happens. Like as if these aren't political choices. Like
Yeah.
no one's like you could just demand the state create new and better jobs. Now, of course, we know that people are just displaced, not that like jobs just disappear because of technological advancement, right?
Mhm.
But instead of demanding that, people are already so conditioned to accept it that they're like, people say, oh, this is going to be a good thing, this will be great, and they're already consenting to having their jobs taken away from them. And it won't be taken away from them, it'll just be Uberized.
Yes. Yeah, and you'll I mean, you will be rented out, an hour at a fucking time, and that's what I mean. You already sell your labor an hour at a time, but you know what I mean. It's what drives me crazy about this is like, who wants AI? Who wants automation? Who wants any of these things? I don't know anybody that does. None of my friends want it. Nobody in my extended circle of people I know seems to be clamoring for this kind of stuff. This technology only benefits a very, very, very infinitesimally small number of people in the world, and it benefits them immeasurably. And all it does is it immiserates millions, as I said, if not billions of other people. And it's crazy that there's almost no real opposition to any of this stuff. Even like your so-called left-wing politicians, anything like this. Nobody's really talking about how this is going to fucking decimate everybody's lives. I mean, the Great Reset is essentially rolling on to the future with absolutely no real, actual, opposition.
Well, they've done a really good job of diffusing it. Like, it's not a coincidence that Joe Biden's slogan is "Build Back Better," which, by the way, is also a slogan of the Great Reset.
Mm-hmm. Also, a slogan of an aid campaign in Haiti by Bill Clinton during his presidency,
and one by Boris Johnson.
Mm-hmm. Also, I believe a Canadian one as well. I mean, it's all appearing in the air at the same time. And, you could say, brother, you could get out there and you could say, okay, maybe this is the acausal connecting principle at work. Maybe these people are doing dark magic, and no. I would not disagree with you. But I think this is all in the air for a reason.
So when you say, I just want to drive this point home because I feel like I've been just flopping around like a fish all over the place. Not the most eloquent day for me. But when you say it's only going to benefit like a small population of the world, like I want people to imagine, like, again, you and your family and your friends and your dogs and your backyard and everything is now going to be a piece of data that this very small group is going to use as the kind of as like a new like fun game for them to bet on and create like a new financial market, new stock options, new assets, new crazy little derivative products that they can on your lives. Like that's what this game is. And that's what's happening.
Yeah, like and again, like like we said a few times in this episode, like that might not seem like a big deal, but like that will be a big deal, and it won't maybe dawn on you all at once, like when you see like, oh my god, my life has totally changed. But like, imagine, we hear a lot of talk about people in sort of our generation, the millennial people, about like how different their lives are at their age than their parents were at the same age, and it's like, brother, you don't even know what's coming, like things are going to look so fucking different. And I want to be like all doom and gloom here, but it's like, we need to recognize what's going on in order to actually like really get behind, maybe doing something about it, because these people, I mean, they have momentum and they have every single institution basically in the world backing them. I mean, you are going to see smart cities. You're going to see digital currency. You are going to see cameras at every street corner. And they are going to be sold to you. All of these tools of control are not going to be sold to you as tools of control. They're going to be sold to you as tools of protection from you, as a public good, as social justice, as progress.
Absolutely. In fact, some of the biggest cheerleaders, I would say, are coming from the progressive wing of politics.
Well, the thing that I always ask when people say that they're progressive, they support progressive policies, you always got to ask, progressing towards what? Right? Progressing towards fucking what? And I don't think they really have an answer, because this seems to be what we're progressing towards. And anybody who doesn't stand against this stands for it. And it just about drives me fucking insane.
Well, we have like so much more to get into with this, because there are a lot of other angles to explain. You mentioned digital currency, and I really want to get into that, because get ready, people, it's happening. Digital dollar,
Yeah.
FedCoin, coming to your e-wallet.
You got to spend it before it expires.
That might happen, absolutely. But yeah, you've got digital currency. We're gonna have to talk about Bill Gates a little bit more.
Oh yeah. I even got more on Schwab. I didn't even mention Schwab as a frequent attendee of the Bilderberg Group. My God.
I know.
That could have escaped me.
Yeah, we got to talk about him, and we got to get into this idea that they're floating. And perhaps you've also heard from friend of the pod, Elizabeth Warren, during her failed campaign for president, the concept of stakeholder capitalism and what that means. So we're going to get into that in the next episode, because it's just too much for one.
I'd like to introduce her to the concept of gun holder Belden.
That was terrible.
Sorry.
One last thing I want to mention, though, is that like for our fellow tinfoil hat wearers out there, unfortunately, like the Great Reset is now becoming like, I think I mentioned this on the episode we did with Robbie about Q.
Yeah.
But it's like becoming the new dumping ground for like all conspiracy theories.
Yes.
Where like everything is kind of getting folded into it. And like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if like Q kind of morphs into this stuff. And like, you know, I think that that's like on purpose to like muddy the waters with something that's actually real. You know?
Absolutely. I mean, we saw that with 5G too.
Absolutely. And by the way, we should say 5G is essential to this project. It will not work. You cannot literally map the world without 5G.
Well, that's something that really gets your fucking brain going about this, because they need basically no opposition to 5G in order to implement these, let's say, dastardly plans. And it's like what they've done is they've essentially nullified any opposition to it by being like, well, these people are cranks, you know? Yes. Like these people are fucking lunatics. They say stuff that doesn't make any sense. Well, if you were them and you wanted to make that the case, then why maybe that kind of works in your favor, you know?
Yeah. Which is, I mean, that's what it is. It's everyone who opposes the idea of an entirely new global economic system where all of our lives are financial instruments for a very select few group of little bankers in like fucking London and Switzerland, while we like toil away as like, you know, I don't know what, like
at the bug food burger factory.
Yeah, exactly. In our pod world, just like financial mulch for these people. Anyway.
Yeah. Well,
I don't want no part of it.
A few hand grenades can fix.
But
yeah.
That's why we'll always say TrueAnon, anti-5G from the start, and we've never wavered.
No, absolutely not. And you know what? I'll tell you what, anti-Great Reset too.
Oh yeah, no way, no thanks.
Well, I was wavering at the beginning. I was like, well, I like great things. I also tend to have to restart or like reset rather a lot of electronic instruments I use when I use them because they don't work good, and that usually fixes them. And so I was like, the combination of the two, I mean, that is so attractive to me that I'm practically sweating. And then I read what's going on here. I mean, I don't think I like this baby.
Yeah, it's the not so great reset.
Well,
That's not very catchy.
Standing here in total opposition to the New World Order, we are TrueAnon. My name is Brace Belden.
I'm Liz.
We are joined by producer Young Chomsky.
And we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein. Come here. Jeffrey Epstein.